Hello. I would say that teacher-centered classrooms ought to become relics of the past. Contemporary pedagogical thinking rejects the very idea that knowledge is transmitted from teachers to learners. Instead, the learners construct knowledge on the basis of the knowledge they have already constructed or acquired, with the aid of course, teachers, more advanced learners and peers. Learners even in kindergarten are not blank slates for the teacher to superimpose knowledge upon. They too have already constructed substantial knowledge by interacting with their environment. The teacher is only a facilitator in the learning process, sometimes called upon to do what is technically called scaffolding or shoring up what the learners have already constructed. The key to what we call constructivist method of learning is the interaction involving both the teachers and the learners. The teacher too is of course a learner in the process. Being a more advanced learner, the teacher of course can design appropriate material for learning and set up the optimal conditions required for learning. The notion of critical pedagogy, which grow out of constructivism, also requires the learners to grow out of their habits of passive reception. Of course, learners were considered passive receptors. Now, of course, they are not passive receptors. And they have to learn to critically evaluate both their environment and the very process of learning. Although constructivism is often discussed in the context of primary and secondary education, the existing process of learning at the tertiary level is also largely traditional and teacher-centered. This is of course a contradiction, considering that here we have learners at a very advanced stage. So higher education should not be allowed to remain immune to the tremendous pedagogical revolution that is set to sweep our society. Hello. Yeah, we're back for yet another round of discussion. So I think we'll begin straight away. Okay, somebody can introduce the topic. Yeah, Mahima.
Since the advent of media and the intervention of women into it, this has been a hot topic for debates and discussion. We know the term representation itself is a highly charged problematic term, and the media in today's world is in a convoluted state. This is not just a national concern. In fact, our topic, it is a global one. When we have the predicaments of nuclear peril, genocide, honor killings, casteism, racism, along with few men, women are the major victims. I think we will have a discussion on the representation. The term, we know that itself is it brings out a tension. So we can discuss about the term itself as representation, misrepresentation or misrepresentation. I think any one of you can take up the debate or the discussion.
So let me begin by asking a few questions based on this particular topic. Why are we actually discussing the representation of women in media and not any other representations? What is so special or what is so different about the representation of women in media? Taking certain examples from the contemporary era, we have so many item dance performers who are doing their movements using their body, and parallel to that we have tremendous, magnificently talented actresses like Vidya Balan, who has changed or entirely altered the image of our understanding of the Indian female actress. When she is doing a character like the character of Silk in the Dirty Picture, she is actually changing our understanding about Silk herself. So before we had what the image of Silk, what we had was in a negative sense. But after this picture and after Vidya Balan's performance, the whole idea, the whole concept of Silk or such kind of actresses is glorified. And recently we had the news of an 18-year-old Serbian girl who sold her virginity using the possibilities of the visual media. So at the same time we have the iconic figure of Angelina Jolie, who through her removal of her breast, she is at the same time she is becoming an independent woman who's making her own choices over her own body, And we can also say that there is an inner capitalism playing in that. So, taking into consideration all these examples, is media actually representing the real women, the ordinary women, or is there actually a patriarchal mastermind that is playing behind every visual of any woman who is represented in the visual media? I would like someone else to carry over with this.
Yeah, Ramya has brought up a very good opening for the topic. I think along with discussing why are the women represented and why are women represented, I mean stressing on women, I think it is also important to discuss who are representing women or for whom are women represented. I think the topic opens up a little more broader. Somebody else can take up.
Probably you can take up the issue of the agenda behind such representations, for whom such representations are made, and what kind of representations are made. Probably, do we have some visuals which somebody can show? That will probably enliven the topic. Yeah. What about you?
Like,
do we have some visuals?
Sarah Buttman will go?
Yeah, that will do. That will do.
Okay.
Some visuals as a kind of beginning.
Okay.
All right.
I have a visual of Sarah Bartman. Can you show? She's known as the Hottentot Venus. She arrived in London in 1810, and this young woman from South Africa is an overnight sensation in London theatre of human oddities. Her body was the object of Purian gaze, scientific fascination, and disturbed bewilderment. She is a symbol of the alienation and degradation, or even we can say savagery of colonialization, the lost children, exile, the expropriation of female labor, and the sexual and economic exploitation of black women by men, white and black.
Yeah, probably I think this is the first instance of this kind of representation, the body as representing womanhood, a certain kind of womanhood, a certain kind of constructed womanhood. So probably this can serve as the launching pad for discussion, representation at a very concrete level. Okay.
Yeah, even from the picture itself, we found that her features are so unusual, both her buttocks as well as her front. So they used to carry her like an animal. They used to carry her in every stages, and people used to have that. They used to throw that voyeuristic gaze over her. And not only that, even after her death, all these genitals as well as her body parts were preserved, and they were even shown in media too.
But that was I don't think that it was a first instance of a body being represented in the media. In advertisement, for example, when we look at all the main advertisement we see in the movie, we don't see fat ladies being represented as models or icons for marketing any product, whatever be it, or neither do you see a black lady or a Dalit woman, kind of, to use the technical word. You don't see such a representations of women in the media. What all we see in the media is the quote-unquote fair and lovely, thin ladies getting represented. So don't you think that media is propagating a kind of an attitude of, creating a culture of modeling or constructing the womanhood desired gaze or desired picture of what they should be represented? What do you think?
So I think media is a major factor in the construction and circulation of social understanding and social imagery, both in traditional and modern society. So media set an agenda that determines our action. Most of the time, I think media is mute on defining women's participation in the public sphere. And it's just an agent for transmission of traditional patriarchal societal roles. So the question is, are the women in media really liberated?
Yeah, I think we have moved on from representation of women in the media to women in the media. Women who are actually media personnel. I think that's what Taparna meant. From being represented to actually taking part in the representation. So I think there will be much to be said about this. Yeah.
I think what media does is that it highlights the functional role of women. It idolizes different functions of women. And in the case of housewife, the typical housewife, or in the case of a body, the best body, the most beautiful body. In the case of a bride, the best bride, who fits into the traditional expectancies of all of us, the society. And I think the media can only do such representations. We can't really highlight each and every aspect of different individuals. So the best thing which is accepted by most of us is presented for us. So I don't think whether there is any kind of exploitation as such in these representations.
So talking about the role of advertisers, they present women both in traditional and glamorous roles so that their products are sold out on the basis of beauty and glamour. But we audience, we enjoy them and we are little concerned about female dignity or respect, which is a silent feature of our Indian tradition. So the advertisers, they argue that they are being demanded by the audience or the society that for the stereotypical portrayal of women. So it is high time they work within a legal framework.
And already discussed, this mass media is a powerful tool provide us with information and entertainment. And media reflects the society as well as it influences the way we think. And we can see the gender inequality in this media representation. But at the same time, there are counter representations or counter narrations also is there. For example, in mainstream films, for example, films like Kahani or Chak De India, we can see some counter representations. In Kahani, we can see that the lead role is a female character and she is trying to investigate her husband's murderer and she is taking revenge. And in that, she is pretending to be like a pregnant lady, and it gives her some kind of protection, and it also it's a kind of resistance. Another is Chak De India. It is a box office hit film, and in that film also we can see the strength of a group of women, and they represent for the whole country. Usually, women is represented as something subordinate to the male counterpart, but they are always talking about the male characters in the film. But there are some films like The Iron Lady. It shows it portrays the life of the British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. In that film, she is more concerned about the country rather than her family or her husband. And another kind of counter representation is in the film Spit on Your Grave. In that film, Assaulted Lady, how a lady is taking revenge on a gang, raped her. And such counter representations are also taking place. But at the same time, we have to analyze where it is representing and what kind of marketing strategies they are using. We should also analyze that also.
In the case there, a case of demand came, just said earlier, that the media is representing something that the audience demand. It's after all a capitalist society and it's about marketing. Whatever agenda media has, the ultimate question is about what sells. What does the viewers need? What do they enjoy? Are we capable of building such an image that would sell? So it's about marketing. A major part of it is about money and marketing.
Yes, Calicut was talking about counter narratives as some kind of an advantage of the media, or rather a positive side of media, ought to be kind of ladies or women are represented. But I would like to ask, together with Swati, I would like to ask, along with capital, you have to read this along with the capitalistic agenda of the media. Where do these counter narratives come from? What do you think about it? Who do manufacture these counter narratives? Where do they originate? Do you think that these counter narratives are coming from some nowhere in the space and telling you that all world of the women unite, here is liberation for you from the media? Do you think so?
No, it is a kind of resistance, I think.
Of course. And coming to the advertisement, I think I have to show you one more advertisement of the Tough Shoes. It's a photograph by Richard Avedon. Yeah. You could see.
Yeah.
It's a controversial ad, and I know most of you must be knowing about it. And I think you can see that there is nothing called inequality you could see in this in this photograph, that is equal. Both are equally. Look at the gaze and how the python is put on. It is like it's totally an erotic image, and even they are like, we could say that they are selling their body or exploiting your body. But moreover, I found that they're like exploring their body. What do you say about that?
I totally agree with Mahima. I was wondering how far the term exploitation is relevant. Now coming to modeling and item dance. Earlier, there was a stereotypic notion that the women who engaged in item dance, they were considered as of loose character. But now the trend is slowly changing, because now the leading actress, they are taking up the role of item dancers. So I was wondering if they are ready to accept it, then where is the exploitation taking place?
Okay, I want to talk about that. Both of you now just problematize the term exploitation and give another term that is a kind of exploration. You tend to look at it as an exploration only when you look at it what they do. If you go back and check why they do, you may find that they do not have a choice. That's the reason. Sometimes they're really putting themselves in a kind of risk, because if they do this kind of jobs, they of course society will of course reject them. So they are taking a huge risk there. Why do they take such risk? Most often the reason is that they for a long time they have been they were discriminated against in the society. They were not given any education or anything of that sort. So they were left a kind of utterly resourceless in this society. So many times they find themselves unable to survive in this society, and for them to find some or other kind of jobs to support them, to survive them, they take this kind of jobs. So you cannot say that they are really making a choice there. It is not a choice, it is a force on something sometimes.
Here still we are just sticking on to the same notion that virginity is something really sacred. That's why we are again going to the same point that it is exploitation. They are being forced. If virginity is something which is not so sacred, then what is there?
Okay, I get your point. My problem here is not the sacredness of virginity or anything of that sort. They are people who come to this trade not because they really make a choice. Okay, as long as the society doesn't change its attitude towards such women, they will of course be stigmatized. And if they come forward to take up this kind of jobs, probably leaves them in kind of such a risk of stigma. They do not make it out of choice, because for a long time they are not given any right to education or anything of that sort. In this society, which is a kind of cutthroating competition you have there. In this such a society where you leave them utterly resourceless, they do not find any kind of job. So that's the reason why they come forward to take this kind of jobs. So they really are not making any choice, they are forced there.
Okay, how far a choice is really a choice? That's the question here. But whoever who comes to the field of media, they are successful only because they have used their potential. They have made use of it. They have exploited it, not in a negative manner, but a positive manner. But what about their life? They are actually leading a dual life. In profession, they may be very successful. But what about in their personal life? I can provide you a very good example, very recent example, that is of a film actress being abused by an MP in Kerala during a Vallangali festival. So the reactions which came to this incident was very interesting. She was abused, she gave a complaint, but many reacted in a way that she deserves it, because she once was a model in Kama Sutra ad, and she have acted in a very controversial film named Kalimannu. So all these have given her a negative image among the public, and hence she deserves such an abuse. So the abuse is actually okay. It's okay to abuse such a lady, So what life these actresses she's not a lone case. It is the same condition with item dancers or any other such woman. What about Vidya Balan? She gets films of such names, of such color after the dirty picture. So what about their life? What about their personal life? There is a duality between both.
Hello. It's a very common experience that questions of representation normally do not exclude the agents of representation. I mean, those who actually do the representation, who are in the thick of things, so to say. So welcome back to this second episode of representation of women in the visual media.
So in this context, I would like to ask you about how the women working for the visual media, how are they represented?
Yeah.
What about people who work in front of the camera, the news readers and also all these people? Even they are not free from all this representations, the patriarchal eye of the camera, and the success story of one Oprah Winfrey doesn't mean that the whole of this community is independent and highly liberated. So we have to discuss that also.
But at the same time, we can't deny the fact that there are so many programs in our channels. They present successful stories of women from all classes. The programs like Stree, She News, Out of the Box, they represent successful women. So we can't deny the fact that media always present only fragile women. I don't think so.
Okay, now we are discussing something kind of, we have come to realize that there are counter narratives and there are, women empowering themes being discussed in the media. And along with that, there was a discussion on the point that the women in the media, how they were represented as, the empowered and, the educated icon of the women coming up. So I would like you to, answer this kind of a question. How do you see the counter narratives coming up? Where are they coming up? And do you think that they are really liberating or, to discuss the topic exploitation or choice? Is it really a choice or exploitation? And then along with that, how do you see this counter narrative? Are they really countering the patriarchal ideology being played in the women, played in the media? What do you think?
I agree with Chintu. Coming back to the example given by Talhat, he gave two examples about Kahani and Chak De. Whereas in Kahani, the whole notion of pregnancy becomes a charade, and the ideal womanhood, who's supposed to be the ideal mother, it all becomes just gets thrashed. The whole notion gets thrashed. But so in a way, Kahani can be seen as a counter narrative. In the case of Chak De, all the 11 players are much good looking or better than supermodels. So instead of showing their sportsmanship or their skills as a sports woman, they're beautified into something, the ideal notion of the supermodel. So that's the counter discourse goes down the drain. My point is that since we are talking about exploitation or exploration, all we are being presented are negative images or the so-called idealized versions of womanhood. So my question is, why aren't there enough women behind the camera so that they can actually show what a real woman is? The lack of women behind the camera who can actually dictate terms to the society or create their own version of womanhood, that lack should be addressed.
Yeah, I think this is a vital point. But at the same time, I believe that if you want women behind the camera, you should expect them in other places also. The appearance of women in the media is determined by how they are treated in general in society. In a very advanced society, advanced in terms of gender justice, if you take the Nordic countries, in Sweden, in Finland, in Iceland, all those countries where there are about 40% of women in parliament. So there is a general advance for women. They have come up. So that is also reflected in the media, in literature. So unless that happens, can we expect them to man positions in the, or woman positions? The term itself is problematic. To man a camera, to woman a camera, let us say. So I think that ought to be the kind of understanding that we should have. You can't expect them in the media alone. Okay.
Moreover, that the condition of women, it is similar to those of Dalits, because the man has been dominating the mainstream from the beginning itself. It is only in the 20th century that the woman started getting education. Even the University of Oxford and all was open for women only in the 20th century. So they are becoming self-aware only in the recent centuries. So it will take time for them to come to the mainstream. There are directors like Revati and all. They are really doing a great job. So in no time they will also come. Women will also come to the mainstream, but it will take time because they have been suppressed for a long time. So it will take place.
There is a global concern where fatwa is given to a woman, that is Taslima Nasreen, and we know the kind of the attitude of the people, not only just in India but around the world, or Bangladesh in that matter, that the kind of the abuses she really receives even for opening her opinion. And in another case, legitimization of rape is even included, of the infidel woman. Not of the pure piety woman, but of the infidel woman is legitimized in Syria. So when we consider out of India, the situation is more worst, and the representation even in films, I think some more than India, the Middle East films or the Iranian waves and all, they are doing much more justice than what our Bollywood or all this cultural industry of India, what we say, does. Agreeing to Renu, let's hope things are changing. There are still women voices raising out for their liberation. For example, of Irom Sharmila, so she started her strike, her Anga strike in 2000, as well as in Kerala, there is a lady called Jazeera, and she is striking alone. And her strike is a one-woman strike completely against the coal mining and sand mining mafia. And she has been traveling from Kerala to Delhi, and people are giving her support. But we have to see that a kind of stagnation is something that happens to all this strike, and more power has to be given from media as well as from the mob to support them, so that I think things will change to an extreme.
I think from what we have been discussing so far, one central idea that has come through is that in a particular social matrix, which is not, let us say, very egalitarian or just, you have to expect not only women but any weaker section, any oppressed section of society to be misrepresented, or in other words, to be misrepresented with a particular agenda. That much I think we have probably concluded from the discussion. Okay. So I think we have to move on from here. So how does this particular matrix show a marked change, and how does this reflect upon the media? Okay, not the other way around, not the media changing society, but the change society showing the media, or showing the way to the media, let us say, so to speak.
This is about counter-narratives actually. How far the counter-narratives are actually counter-narratives? I'd like to pose that question, because it is also a construct. Media is conditioning the viewpoint of people in a way that they picture ideals, like an ideal mother, ideal housewife, ideal ammayamma, or just like that. anything like that. So they are creating images of everything, and so these counter narratives are also a sort of an image of counter narrative. In this society, in the age of new generation films and all, new generation media, we need counter narrative. It is a necessity. So they create images of counter narrative so that we are satisfied. I remember one of the scholars telling the best way to suppress any movement is to create the studies. Just like to suppress the women's movement, you will have women's studies. So to suppress Dalit movement, you will have Dalit studies. So the best way to suppress Maoists is to start a studies, Maoist studies. Just like that, they are creating a counter narrative. They are images of counter narrative so that we are all satisfied. We go behind that. How far these programs are actually a real counter narrative programs. How far it comes from within.
The question is, what is ideal? Because we know that, yeah, of course, Lakan has told that usually human beings have the tendency for something ideal. But still, what the advertisers and in the visual media, what they are showing, what is the concept of ideal? It is just changing from time to time. So I don't think that there is a concept called ideal woman or ideal husband or something like that. It is just changing from time to time. And how far that concept is relevant.
Yeah. You mean to say that you can't expect a change to be permanent. That itself will change.
Yeah, it itself will change.
Get you.
The recent turn in the discussion was very fantastic. Actually, Swadi's comment, which was very political, was apt. Like, the point is, what we happen to see in the counter narratives or liberating kind of movies or serials or whatever we have there, we see women as empowering and educated and then forward mentality or modern to call it. I mean, what we see is when the patriarchal ideology, I believe when the patriarchal ideology that the media was following, the quote-unquote male gaze and all that, which was working in it, was discovered, and when there was a resistance against it in all the spheres of social life, the media absorbed. The media, as the big culture industry behind it, bigger and bigger than we can imagine, being absorbed the ideology and the people into it, and it remodulated another kind of ideology. Putting the whole thing together, and it started, bringing out something kind of what we call counter narratives or new generation films or item dance or whatever. What happens constantly is we are being absorbed and absorbed into and conditioned by the media, by the media to be what we see and all. Talking about the ideal representation, in such a context, which I have been mentioning, what we see in the media is what we live, and what we are made to absorb it, and we are conditioned by it, or rather internalize the idea of what we see in the media. What we see is what we live, and what we live is what we see.
I totally disagree with that, because I don't think that what the concept of a slim, a white, a fair lady being represented in the advertisement, it is something which is going on in our society. I just don't agree with that. There is an international politics that is being operating, and the politics of the first world nation that is being thrust on the third world countries. So in that way, they are just trying to mold our views and perceptions, and they are just trying to thrust their culture on our culture. So there is an international politics going on, not that what we are seeing in the advertisement or something that is what we are. I just don't think that. I totally disagree with that.
The ads of Axe, perfumes and deodorants. We see women running after men only to get that fragrance. Are we actually like that? I don't think so.
No, what I see is Ramya and Renu has almost I understood the politics behind it. Think about the middle class women and the lower class women who have just been familiarizing with the TV and all the things we call it in the discussion, ideology and all that going on.
Yeah,
do you think that they were?
Yeah, they are creating their identity by the notions the TV channels or the media is just propagating. So they have no other option. They are thinking that the the media, what the media shows is real, and they are just following that. They are just trying to follow that. Their capitalism is playing its role, and yeah, that is the reason I think it happens.
Another point I want to add: why men are chosen for ads relating to banks and insurance cards, I mean Visa cards, just like that, and why women are not portrayed in such ads? That's a question. I was wondering why.
But I've noticed something different. It's an advertisement of an international bank, and the setting of the advertisement is in Rajasthan. A woman, sari clad, and she is empowering that women folk by providing them sewing machines and all those technical things required for them to have to start cottage industries. So end of the advertisement only we will come to, otherwise you will just mistook that advertisement for an HRD advertisement from ministry. So end of the advertisement only we come to know that it is advertisement of an international bank. So I think there are women representations too, but though we say it as representation, or is it misrepresentation?
Okay, so I think we have moved on from the particular to the general, starting off with concrete instances of representation, then talking about why such representations have been made, what are the agenda behind that, what do all these representations mean, okay, what is behind such representations. So I think we have reached a point where we are looking at it in, let us say, a global perspective, not just locally, not just what we see before our eyes, but what it would signify in a comprehensive scale, on a comprehensive scale. Okay.
Before we come on a conclusion, I would like to tell you something about the representation of women in media is that nowadays the trend of representation of women that had in past is changing. So they have got much freedom. Okay, in the earlier we know that in a film they were represented as ideal women. Now they have got an equal importance of a man. They do the roles of the men in the sense that they are equally treated in films and advertisement, and there is no difference between men and women in film. Okay, in many films they are shown as equal partners. So in the past what we notice is that in films women were suppressed, or in the sense that women were under the control of men. Now in films or media that we see is that they are coming, or they are more powerful, they are more energetic than men. They have got much important role in the society. Nowadays what I see is that what we see is that women's role in politics and current affairs is coming, or they are coming like a huge tycoon. They are coming, they are overthrowing the roles of men in all positions.
I think in the course of the discussion we have moved on from the particular to the general. Okay, for instance, showing concrete instances of representation, visuals, particular mention about concrete instances, and then looking at what these representations meant, what is behind such representation, what are the agenda which played in this representation, who are the people who are consciously, deliberately representing women in this manner. Okay, and also we saw that this is not a local phenomenon, it has international or global ramifications. You cannot look at representation in a local perspective alone. You have to look at it in a wider perspective, involving the whole world. Okay, involving layers of experience, involving a hierarchy of representation. So I think we have done a good job, and probably, Mahima can sum up the discussion, so that we have everything in perspective. Yeah.
Okay, to conclude, I know that we all got still a lot more to say on this topic. Next class, I think we will carry over. Well, we started our discussion with a fragment from past, taking example of Sarah Bartman, and with that we discussed our concern and relevance of women representation till today. spoke about the modalities of agendas, stereotypical portrayal of women in advertisements, and the agenda behind the representations, major factors in social media controlling it, and in cinema, the representation of women as marginal, and the counter representation of women in cyberpunk films we spoke about. And we spoke about the resistance operating in cinema. We also discussed about the positive aspects of media, the choices made to take forcefully, which is dictated on, and how far is choice really a choice. And there was even a debate on the exploration as well as exploitation, and marketing as a strategy to explore the potential. We also discussed the representation of women working in the media, and the need of women behind the camera to address the lack. Pluralistic relativism we peripherally discussed, and small debate again came about ideal representation as well as the real representation. And finally we come to the conclusion that all representations are misrepresentations, and within the minority who develops. And the concern is, the final concern of this, our discussion for this class is that the outreach of the voice of resistance to the public sphere and how much media reflects the concern.
Thank you, Mahima. That is rather well put. I think we have had a wonderful session of discussion, and we will be coming back for more. Thank you.